house in the world.
That's hard.
There's two points to look at there, right? In terms of going from like luxury Sotheby's auction to Walmart, with that joke, I guess, it doesn't really fucking matter because, I mean, NFTs is such a wide domain of things, including like GameFi, SocialFi, whatever it might be. Like the demographics are completely different, like you said, from like punks to fucking sappy seals to pudgy penguins. So they all attack different demographics. So like, first of all, that part's bullshit. And then on the note of us using like centralized means when this is us supposed to be fighting everyone and going against the grain, like I know what you mean, Muppets, but like we need to kind of work with the big centralized bodies in order to get this shit global. And I mean, it doesn't mean everyone necessarily has to work with these companies, but the ones who are and the companies that are present, like Nike, Artifact, and Pudgy Penguins of Walmart, I think it's an overall long-term W in the space anyway.
No, of course, I wasn't using this as an attack on Pudgy. I'm just trying to provide some form of an explanation.
Oh no, I know.
What Pudgy's did well, guys, and I don't think a lot of people talk about it, is their gift game. Like they have billions of impressions on gifts, and like so many people essentially got introduced to Pudgy's because of gifts and loving the paint. You know what I'm saying? So that was an excellent part of the marketing scheme. That like, if you could get your community to blow up gifts of billions of views, you'll have a presence in the hearts and minds of your fucking everyday, social media influencers who are collectors as well.
Yeah, 100% bro. Yeah, the gifts, I mean, the fact they're doing billions of fucking views is why definitely gets a lot more eyes on them. I don't know what this order was. Bollocks. Okay, gonna go Boot, Cheddar, Sputnik, then Sammy, in that order.
Yeah.
We'll go no house.
Yeah, I think the news, obviously, like, it's super bullish because, I mean, I put in chat as well, but like we spent like the whole like last 12 months being like, oh, NFTs need to iterate, they need to like get different revenue streams, and then when like these projects are kind of achieving that, then people are like, oh, but it's how could it be Walmart, not something else? It's like like at least it's something, right? And I think part of it is like if you can do this and you can bring in money outside of having to sell more product, right? Like you are basically allowing the project or brand to like go on, right? And in the time now where like everything is kind of crumbling, if you can outlast, right, then the remaining kind of liquidity in the space at some point, like when people think that you are the player that's going to win, like the holdouts will buy in and opt in, and the liquidity flows into you, right? So like if you think of a year's time from now, right, we have like whatever, like let's say 6 projects that are like the big projects, right? Like I don't see that as being the same way in 1 year, right? I think maybe we have 3 of them, and then maybe in 2 years there's only like 2 of them or something like that, right? So it's like it's just the top dogs who are winners are going to basically pull market share from the rest of the projects because it's just not enough figures, like big enough kind of like ecosystem for like 50 top kind of PFP kind of things to exist. And the people that make the smart brand plays early, who can fund the projects, like this doesn't need to have trickle down effect to the holder like now, like it doesn't need to move the floor price at all, right? Like that can happen in like 2 years time or 3 years time by virtue of them just existing, right? So I think it's a smart play. Like we should probably like be a little bit more like long-term thinking. And if you own Pudgies, and I don't own one, like I mean I minted them and sold them, but that was back with Cole. But like that's the only NFT that I would buy based on them doing the right stuff, right? And I'm not looking for it to like go up in price quickly, but if I'm looking to buy an NFT as an asset that I think is going to like increase over time, like in a matter of years, then Pudgies is that bet. And I just don't see any other projects that are feasible, right, at this point, in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing projects trying to mint and launch around stuff right and center. Everyone else is coming. And they're doing this, they're securing fucking partnerships with Walmart in a fucking bear market. But what I was going to ask you actually, before we move on to Treader and True next, was you kind of mentioned like you think there's only going to be like a few big projects that are going to last. What was that to do with? Like, what's like what are you basing that on? Is it the you mentioned something about like market share or stuff like that. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that like if there's only limited liquidity in the space, right, then people are wanting to probably park that with the winners. And if the projects that can bring in revenue and can, like, let's say we saw the news today, but like imagine over the course of 2 years, there's like 20 or 10 more pieces of news like that from one project, and then you have another project which has nothing, right? Like at some point you're going to be like, well, like I'm gonna offload my bags here, and maybe I want to put my money into like what I think is a winner. So just purely based on that, like the ones that can demonstrate that they can exist outside of our bubble and bring in money outside of our bubble, I think will just kind of win by default. Like they're going to be the restaurant that sells the food that people want, right? And then the other ones are going to be the stuff that doesn't take off, is not popular anymore, or fails to iterate. And I just don't think that every project can do that. I have no idea. Like we'd all be just like throwing up guesses if we think that we know what's going on behind the scenes as to what kind of deals those projects are doing. But like this has kind of really set the stage for like what you need to do. And the other big projects in the space, if they don't start doing this in some capacity, like I would just start to be kind of a little bit bearish on their plans.
Yeah, well, these things are going to get left behind. I mean, you see people like Nike and shit entering the space, doing all that kind of stuff. Even little things like fucking vape collabs, obviously it's not on the same level, but like the cool kind of thing. Yeah, I agree. I think that kind of collabing with these massive companies and brands is definitely important. Cheddar, I'm going to chuck it over to you, buddy.
Yo. Yeah. I love this topic because this is like what I've been waiting for personally. I'm focused around branding, and honestly, I never have good takes because I can't relate to most of the things that people talk about when it's all tech savviness. But this particularly, I'm bullish on. All right, so to touch on one of them, everyone has different paths, right? I know Buckets brought up the whole the whole point of NFTs is to disrupt things and sometimes just do things a little bit differently. But I do recall that he bought that project because he wanted to turn it into a brand. So the fact that he chose his path and he created a business model behind it was something that was bullish for their community. Now, looking at it for the few people that do represent wanting to enter the space to build a brand, I know that's not what it was supposed to be for, la-di-la-di-la-di, but I feel like at the end of the day, even though we're partnering up or we're working with these centralized companies, there's still business model disruption there with reward, right? Like you don't see companies or brands start things up in the real world and then reward back their early supporters. They reward them back with minuscule gifts, but perpetuity as far as royalties with like choosing holders NFTs was something that's kind of cool, right? The fact that Walmart is willing to work with a brand in the space, that's the bullish part right there. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we don't want to follow these business models, but partnerships don't determine how a business is ran. Partnership is just something to
Walmart's
add
all
to the
dollar
resume.
signs, bro. Walmart's like, oh, we're about to hit a lick.
That's the way they looked at it. And even the fact, what made me bullish was the fact that Walmart tweeted them, off of a 2.3 million account. That shit was crazy as hell.
That's straight up fact.
And that's the same thing that happened with Vape with the Bored Apes, right? They actually tweeted out. And one thing I have to there's so many things I wrote down, but we need to practice positivity because no one has succeeded. If in the beginning of the space, we thought that, there's going to be one brand to just shut everybody down and be like, we did it first. And then from there, we would learn positivity. It's been...
你要趁他没有放兵的知道这个声音的时候讲东西。因为够扮演，真的，扮演老师一直在听，充满一股正气。 最后一块啊，被收工了啊，最后一块不要了啊，这是这个非常讨厌重新结束了啊，整理这些系统啊。 好，那就这样。呀。22小时，这一块拼图应该22小时哦，史上最久，拼了22小时，真的。已经快23小时了，快23小时了，啊，拼了这么久啊，拖最久啊，是什么？可以查看的吗？这是返回吗？这样，最难的6排已经完成了。啊，果然是完成主动卡。你这个49分钟不久，把剩下的部分给拼完。那就这样，外还应该就是，我在想要晚点好不好干嘛？好，拜拜。这个，断线，没断线。